Booyah, and it's time for the Game Sports Show. It is your host, David McCaig Jr. This is the Game Sports Show podcast, episode 4, and we are back with the Game Sports Show podcast upload. Sorry about the brief absence with these uploads for the Game Sports Show podcast. We are very excited to have you join us here today. As mentioned, I'm David McCaig Jr., and I want to give a special thanks and shout out to the one, only, the man, the myth, the legend, and the producer of this particular podcast, Mike Tassone. If it wasn't for Mike, I wouldn't be able to sound the way I do, look the way I do, and this podcast just wouldn't be what it is without Mike. So I want to say thank you to Mike Tassone, and also give a shout out to our sponsors for the Game Sports Show podcast, Flawless Roofing and the Sport Displays. Flawless Roofing, protect your investments, start from the top. As you see right behind me, a nice poster. I got the sweater over there. I got a hat even on the TGM Pandas Baseball Championship trophy. Over 30 years experience in the business, located in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario and Thunder Bay. However, if you are from outside of those areas, you can certainly reach out to Flawless Roofing at flawlessroofing.ca. And the Sport Displays. If you got that jersey, that T-shirt, the memorable item that you want to display in your office, in your man cave, in your garage, in your living room, your basement, wherever, look no further than the jersey mount from the Sport Displays. Makes the jersey just look so crisp and just looks so unbelievably nice on your wall. Okay, it's simple to install. You can screw it. You can use a double-sided tape. It sticks to the wall. You can easily remove the jersey to put a shirt, remove the shirt to put the jersey. Check them out at thesportdisplays.com. If you have any more questions, reach out to the Game Sports Show SSM at gmail.com. We can provide you those links if necessary, or comment below and we will connect with you through social media platforms. Going to get through the usual housekeeping intro agenda here, and going firstly to the agenda before I get into some other housekeeping items, I want to say today's show, as I mentioned, is brought to you by the Sport Displays and Flawless Roofing. It is powered by TGEM, the Game Entertainment and Media. And to address some TGEM rumors that have been texted to me over the past few weeks, there will be a name change to TGEM, but more details will come with that as we proceed. It won't be until a bit later in the future, but it will be the same platform, which you can check out on YouTube. Make sure you hit like, follow, and subscribe, and all videos on there. But it's a podcast community. And if you are currently recording a podcast, why not reach out to yours truly or to those on TGEM to have your podcast aired? And that's the Game Entertainment and Media gmail.com, or just comment below and we will direct you in that direction to have your podcast aired on TGEM. Now, you know who the sponsor, you know who the powered by is. Let's get to the agenda of today's show, the Game Sports Show podcast, episode 4. We're going to have hockey invade the first segment here after my introduction. Then we're going to have Brad Jacobs come on the show for this podcast. Great segment we're going to have with Brad. And then we're going to have segment 3. We're going to get some final thoughts that has become a tradition here on this particular show. And with that, we're going to talk about the Masters briefly. Yes, Dave McCaig's going to be talking about golf. And we're also going to be talking about football, but not necessarily full football. It's about players and loyalty to the game. So there's going to be about a good chunk of content to definitely observe, and we appreciate you joining us with that here today. Make sure you listen to previous editions of the Game Sports Show. You can check out the Game Sports Show on all platforms, audio, and of course the TGEM Network. A recent upload with John Morasti. That was such a fantastic upload. He shared some stories there. He's one of the 3 gyms on Shoresy, and we also have other podcasts you can check out, including a recent Top Shelf and Full-Time edition as well. Got to give love to the others who are part of our community in the Game Sports Show, and of course TGEM. Now, one thing I want to make sure that I address is the GameSportsShow.com. I wanted to make sure that I brought that up right away. We no longer have an active website. The GameSportsShow.com has been stopped, as we are going to be converting the website into a new direction. Once things get ironed out, there is going to be a full company website that the Game Sports Show is going to be a part of, and it's going to be within on that. So there will be a website in the near future, not the immediate future, but the GameSportsShow.com is no longer, but you can still listen to all platforms, get details from all other audio platforms or visual platforms you're hearing us on or seeing us on, or simply just reach out and we can provide some detail there for you. Now, look, we're already 4:50 into this recording, and there's all the housekeeping items out of the way. All right, if you have any more questions, comment below, and we will assist you. But the Game Sports Show podcast, episode 4, wants to dive into its content, and yours in particular does. There's a lot to get to today, so let's do that. Firstly, I said I would talk about hockey. Look, the NHL, the trade deadline was fantastic. Obviously, everything leading up to the NHL trade deadline was more active than the actual trade deadline day, okay? And the entertainment with the trade deadline wasn't a failure, the trade deadline, maybe for those who had to work trade deadline day that were airing it on the television or live podcast recordings. But the trades leading up there was a lot of trades, right? Ryan O'Reilly, the Patrick Kanes, and the moves that went on really helped each team. And my favorite trade, truthfully, people ask what my favorite trade was, and I'm not going to be biased because everyone knows I'm a Leaf fan outside of talking sports. My favorite trade was actually the Jake Chychrun trade. Jacob Chychrun going over to the Ottawa Senators, I just think that's a perfect fit. As much as I feel like he would have been a good fit with the Edmonton Oilers or even the Toronto Maple Leafs, I feel that going to the Ottawa Senators, they are going through a lot of change, right? There's rumors about Ryan Reynolds buying it. I don't want to dive into the sale of the Ottawa Senators, as that could change just while I'm recording here with you today. So the Jacob Chychrun trade is my favorite because him getting out of Arizona. Sorry, I not to really shoot down Arizona. Obviously, their fan base interaction is not great. They do play in a smaller arena, and when you watch that on TV, it feels like that you are watching a college game. It's just, I feel like Arizona should be an organization moved out of the National Hockey League, and I feel like the huge demographic of hockey fans will agree with me on that. But we're not getting into that topic. It's just, I feel Jacob Chychrun's going to have a new start here in Ottawa. He's really going to be relied upon. You have Jake Sanderson there. You have Thomas Chabot there. You have Brandstrom there. They have a good four right there, right? I think Chychrun would fit better with Jake Sanderson as Sanderson develops, but then you have Brandstrom with Chabot. They got Zub there. You got a good defensive team there in Ottawa that will improve as the veteran experience gains, and the leader of that is, of course, Chabot. Then up front, they have some great things coming up there. Norris going down this year was big for them, but Brady Tkachuk is really pulling away as the captain and has really shown a lot of leadership ability. Claude Giroux being there, your Batherson. The Ottawa Senators are looking good, and they're going to be a very good team. They have slipped out of the race a little bit. Will they make it? I hope they do. I would love to see them in a wild card. I think they would give the Bruins a run for their money, but they are coming. The Ottawa Senators, if they don't make it this year, they'll for sure be there next year. And Ryan Reynolds buying the team, wouldn't that be amazing if he does? They move to a new arena. It's a whole new start for that team, and it's a passionate fan base. Of course, when you play Toronto or Montreal, there's a lot of invasion from Leafs and Habs fans and other Canadian teams when they play there. But the Ottawa Senators do have a good fan base. It gets really exciting, especially for the Battle of Ontario. And to have a rink that's maybe more centralized in Ottawa will attract more fans, especially if Ryan Reynolds buys it. And imagine if they had a Deadpool night. Deadpool jerseys with a Senator, but in a Deadpool. I could just picture it now. I feel like that would be absolutely amazing. But that was my favorite trade of the deadline, and that's all I'll really get into about the NHL in terms of the trade deadline side. But I do want to get into the standings, okay? And the standings itself. And what I'm going to go with is not talk about who the current teams are in what place. I'm actually just going to talk about the actual standings itself. And on a recent Top Shelf podcast, we talked about, it was one that I hosted. As everyone knows on the Game Sports Show, we do rotational hosts for our news shows. You can check out all news shows on all platforms. But on the recent one of Top Shelf that you can check out on the TGM Network YouTube channel and all audio platforms, I hosted that show. And we talked about the NHL standings with the seeding for the playoffs. And right now Boston is the best team in the NHL. What maybe might end up being the best team that we ever see if they end up breaking the record or how that goes with them. But the standings in the NHL really show where the strong teams are in the strong divisions, right? The Atlantic between Boston, Tampa, Toronto. Florida had a rough start. They're really starting to climb up. Ottawa's kind of fell off, but they're growing up. But you got the Metropolitan. You have Carolina, New Jersey, New York, Pittsburgh's underneath those three, which obviously the Crosby era, he's getting a little bit older. Pittsburgh's getting a little bit older. They're starting to back up a little bit, but they're still an exciting team to watch. The other side, of course you have Vegas, you have Dallas, you have Winnipeg, you have Edmonton, Connor McDavid. Anytime the best player in the world is on the ice, it's exciting, and he's got Leon Draisaitl with them, and the Edmonton Oilers are looking really hot. There are good teams in the Western Conference, but there is absolutely no match for the East, okay? How would these teams that are in the West do? Truthfully, I don't want to I don't want to give any hate towards Winnipeg or towards Edmonton and Vegas. I don't mean to do that. But if some of these teams were in the division that Toronto was in, or even the Metropolitan, anything in the East, it is so stacked. I don't think they would be doing as good. And you can look at the standings. I actually have it up right here as I want to give you the most appropriate numbers at this accurate time of recording. If you look at it, from the Eastern Conference in comparison to the West, you have the West. And you got to give love to Colorado, too. I shouldn't forget Colorado, defending Stanley Cup champions. But between the West, the teams that really only scare me in the Western Conference is Colorado, Winnipeg, and Edmonton. Not LA. They're a good team. They are scary to watch. I think they are on a streak. They're definitely notable, but Vegas doesn't really give me a lot of that big scare, to be honest with you. Same with the Minnesota Wild or the Dallas Stars. Like there's good teams there, but the teams that really stick out to me that I think would be successful in the playoffs, Colorado, obviously the defending champions. The Winnipeg Jets, they're built for playoff hockey. They're built for playoff hockey. And the Edmonton Oilers, best player in the world's on the ice. That's all. But if you look at the West, you have teams that the most points at this current time of recording is between Vegas and LA, which LA has really achieved a lot this year, and they're going to continue to get better because of their youth coming up. They're definitely managed really well there with Blake and everyone at the helm. But if you look at the East, you got Boston, Toronto, Carolina, New Jersey, who's ahead of that. The Rangers and Tampa at this time of recording are the teams that are tied for the best points overall in the Western Conference. So it goes without saying that the Eastern is better than the West. We know that. It is more stacked. But if anyone ever tells me that the Western Conference is better, just look at those numbers. Look at the statistics. Look at what is in front of you, because you are completely wrong. I'm sorry. There are good teams. I've mentioned them, the Vegases, the LAs, the Edmontons, Colorado, Dallas is good, Winnipeg's good. There are good teams, okay, but they don't compare with the top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference. They don't. In a 7-game series, I really don't think any of these teams, to the exception of Colorado, Edmonton, and even Winnipeg. I'm giving love to Winnipeg because I think they're built for playoff hockey that would give teams a run for their money. Vegas, LA, no. If I'm Boston, Toronto, Tampa, New Jersey, New York, Carolina, I feel like I can handle those teams. But the teams that would really stick out, as I mentioned, the Colorados, the Edmontons, and the Winnipeg Jets, those are teams that really stick out to me. And the Eastern Conference is so much better. It's not even fucking close, okay? Anyone who thinks that the West is better, I want to hear your take on it, for real. I really do want to hear your take and to why. Yeah, you can point out the defending Stanley Cup champions. You can point out Connor McDavid. You can point out Jake Ottinger's and the team that Dallas has. Or you can look at the LA Kings, how they're 90 points. You know, they've overachieved this year. They're exciting to watch. They got leadership. I'm not worried about a team in the West. The Eastern Conference will win the Stanley Cup this year, by far. And I'll say that right now. The only way that the West beats the East this year is the way the playoffs go, okay? The playoff format that I'll say briefly before I go on to the next point of hockey, and I'm already 13 minutes in, trying to keep this as short as possible. We got a lot to get to. We had a lot of time off in between episodes. The only way the West beats the East is if the East is so battered and bruised getting there. For example, I'll give us someone's trail to the playoff finals, and I'll use Toronto as an example because it feels nice to say off the tongue if you're a Leaf fan. Toronto plays Tampa, they win. They likely play Boston in the second round. If they win, both those series are going 6 or 7 games. Don't care what anybody says. And, of course, it's Toronto. It's going to go 7 games. So you got 12 to 14 games there, right? And then you look at the conference finals. You're getting New Jersey or you're getting New York. Let's just say, or Carolina. So let's say you get Carolina in the conference finals, and that goes 6 or 7 games. Now you've played 20 or 21 games going into the Cup finals. I don't think the teams in the West that have a track to the final, like the number 1 seed, if they make it, let's say Colorado gets the number 1 seed, and they have a track all the way to the finals, their more tougher series are going to be maybe the second and the third series. Toronto, for example, will have to literally go through a gauntlet of teams to get there, and they're going to be exhausted. Now, that'll either take exhaustion or maybe it'll better prepare them. The only way the West wins is if the East is so fatigued from getting there, and the West isn't as fatigued, okay? If you look at different examples, I'm going to use an OHL example here. People in Sault Ste. Marie are going to refer to this a lot. Recently, the Hounds did make the OHL finals just under a handful of years ago, and they played Hamilton. And the Hounds played a lot of games. if I remember correctly, I tried to pull up the staff for exact numbers. They had about 6 games more than what Hamilton had going into the finals. And the Hounds did push it to the brink, but Hamilton ended up winning. And you can tell by watching the Greyhounds that they were exhausted. Okay, now that's the OHL that's obviously underneath the ECHL, it's underneath the AHL, it's underneath the NHL. Obviously, it's major junior hockey. It's a lot different. NHL athletes are built different. But my example states sometimes that path can be so exhausting that you just don't know what team you're going to get by the time you get to the finals. Okay, a team like Boston may not affect it, but Boston is very skilled, but they're playoff built. Toronto, I don't know if they can be successful in the playoffs. They have the talent, but are they truthfully a playoff-built team? I think the depth that they brought in, can they last all these games in a row, and can they stay healthy? Can any team in the East stay healthy after getting through that gauntlet? It's a mystery. So that's the only way that the West would win. But I am betting the East 99.9% sure that the East is going to win the Stanley Cup this year, bar none. And it's going to be Boston, it could be Toronto, it could be Tampa, it could be Carolina, whoever it's going to be. Obviously, everyone's going to flag Boston, right? And fair enough, look at their records. It's a joke how good they're doing, and it upsets me, especially if you are a Toronto fan. But the Eastern Conference is way better than the West, and if someone tells me again they think the West is going to win or they think the West is better, and I've had a few messages, your mind is lost. You're completely wrong. The East is way better. Now, already 16 minutes in, so I get a little passionate there, of course, talking about there are a couple points I want to get into. And make sure you tune into the recent upload of Top Shelf for more dissection about this next topic I'm talking about, but the seeding in hockey. Gary Bettman has recently stated that there's going to be no changes in the seeding of hockey for the playoffs. Listen, I know when Toronto fans talk, they don't want to play Tampa or the Bostons all the time. Okay, and I'm sure if you were Washington, you didn't want to play Pittsburgh all the time, but they had to slay the dragon to go win the cup when Washington did. Either way, you got to play these teams to get to the finals. Doesn't matter. What I have recently proposed is why the NHL doesn't do a 1-16 matchup, like basically an NCAA format. But the travel, the money, the time zones, things are so much different. It'd be so challenging. But I would love to see a team from the East, let's say Boston finishes first, and there's a team in the West who has the least amount of points of all 16 teams. Let's say it's Seattle, that Boston plays Seattle in the first round, right? That would be cool. Then Toronto would play. Maybe they're playing the Winnipeg Jets in the first round. I'm just shooting based on the points. Like, imagine the rivalries that could be created from cross conferences. I think that would be cool. It's not realistic, but that would be a unique scenario. People want to go back to the 1-8 seed. That's what's really addressed a lot. Listen, if you're a Toronto fan, if you were doing the 1-8 again, you're still playing Tampa in the first round. So that doesn't matter, because the way that the seeding goes 1-8 is the 3 division winners get the 1, 2, 3 seed, then it goes down from there. I do like the 1-8. I think that was really cool. But the NHL has a direction of going in this rivalry format and developing rivalries, and they're not going to change that, it seems. But I do think they need to address the playoff format and change it. I don't like how Bettman has no intention to change it, but I bet you down the road there will be change as more teams come. There's been expansion talk about Houston or going back to Atlanta. If they go back to Atlanta, they are nuts. That is stupid. Third time's a charm, right? What's the analogy when you keep doing things repeatedly? I'll let you answer that yourself. So the definition of insanity, right? That's what that would be. I think you need to look at Quebec City and Houston, but we're not going there yet. We're not getting into that topic today. That's for another day, perhaps down the road. The seeding in the playoffs needs to change. And I'm not just saying that as a Toronto fan. That's not the reason why. I'm saying that as that I think teams that have had better years should be rewarded, okay, for who you play. And that always doesn't work out. Look at Tampa when they played Columbus, and that the new format, they got swept. And that has happened before, where the 8th team has beat the first seed. Look at Vancouver, LA back in the day. There's a lot of options. So it doesn't really matter. You got to beat the team anyways to get there. So there is that side, but I would like to see the change. The last point I'm going to get into is general managers in hockey, okay, and if I have time, I'll get to my second point about James Reimer. My little take about it, it's very brief, but the main point I want to get into right now is GMs in hockey. Now, they've had an announcement in New Jersey as of late. I'm just looking at the screen, make sure I get the name correctly. Kate Madigan is the first female assistant general manager, and the Devils, the first one to be named with the New Jersey Devils, of course. And the 6th in NHL history. And great to see that. And you have a lot of female involvement in the game. Haley Wickenheisers, You also have Emily Castonguay as well, involved with the Vancouver Canucks, the first in history for Vancouver, of course. There's been a lot of involvement with females in the game, and I love to see it. What I'm going with this topic is, of course, there should be equal involvement. Doesn't matter, men, women involved in hockey. That's not what I'm getting into. I'm actually going to get into someone who I feel will be and someone that should be, and that's Jennifer Botterill. You know, there's somebody who's went to Harvard, someone who, when she's on the Hockey Night panel, is so on it. She's so professional. And you can check out a recent upload with Kelly Rudy for a special edition upload where we talked about the panel on Hockey Night, and he gave compliment to Jennifer Botterill. The brain that Jennifer has is so terrific and would be such an asset to a front office of a team. And she was in the running for Vancouver's assistant or management position. But she's great on the panel. She has accolades in hockey that are just amazing, and she's educationally smart. She knows the game well. It's amazing. She's so professional, and when she talks, she grasps the attention of the room, right? She really states her knowledge of the game, and I've never really had any disagreements with her, with anyone on the Hockey Night panel. Really, I really do like the Hockey Night panel. I think that's one of the better panels in the game, and of course, friend of the show, TSN, James Duthie. I love their panel, of course, but they're the Jennifer Botterill I'm talking about here, I think that she is going to be involved in the game in the NHL very soon. I think she is going to get a job, and she's very deserving of that. I feel that if Jennifer isn't a part of the game very soon, that would be a mistake to a team that needs that vacancy filled. Give her a call. And I love seeing the females involved with the game in the NHL. There's a lot of great talent out there that can join the game, especially from the female side, and it's great to see the involvement in that change. But I wanted to make this point about Jennifer Botterill. Hire her now. Now, the last point I want to get to about James Reimer briefly before we take a quick break and breather before Brad comes on the show is the James Reimer saga, okay? Not wearing the Pride jersey in the warm-up. Obviously, it might be a little bit more of dated content when you hear it, so I'm not going to get into it. I don't like talking about views or political views or religious views on the show. That's not the point of the show. But I do get texts from a lot of people that listen to the show that ask me, what are your thoughts about this? What are your thoughts about that? And that was one that came across, and I'm going to say it right now. I don't want to address it. I don't want to give views. People have their beliefs and their entitlements. That's up to them. We don't talk about that here on the Game Sports Show. So if you're looking for that content, you can go hear more detail, the rationale from Sportsnet, TSN, and yes, I'm mentioning other media outlets. But if you want more detailed rationale, that's where you can go for that. If you really want my answer with it, it's definitely a different world that we're living in, and people are entitled to their own views. And I obviously the situation gets brought up and it needs to be addressed, but we're not going to talk about it here on the show. So anyone who's expecting an answer for that, the only thing I can say is that people are entitled to their views. But to have the equal involvement in hockey is very important. So I'm going to take a quick breather after 23 minutes when I thought this would be a 10-minute segment. I went to 23. Lots of points to get into here that we chatted about. I'm happy to be back to you here with the Game Sports Show podcast after a few weeks hiatus. Again, the Game Sports Show podcast sponsored by the Sport Displays Flawless Roofing, powered by the Game Entertainment and Media. It's your host, David McCaig Jr. I am going to take a quick sip of my coffee. That's in one of my favorite shows, The Mandalorian, Grogu, great cup, and take a breath. Take a second to get some air in my system, and we're going to welcome Brad Jacobs here on this show. So don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss that. He is back in curling, and we're going to talk about it. And without further ado, let's bring in the man, the myth, the legend himself, Olympic gold medalist and good friend of yours truly and the Game Sports Show, well known in the community of Sault Ste. Marie and in the world of curling, obviously. The one and only Brad Jacobs. Brad, welcome back to the Game Sports Show podcast, man. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you. It's always a pleasure, Dave.
Yeah, it's always fun. You and I know each other pretty well outside of let's just say the media side of things. You're not just on here as a guest. You know the show quite well, dating back to 2017, I think was your first appearance. And, you know, the story I like telling everybody, and I kind of use it as a little bit of a brag, but I have put on your gold medal. I have put that on in your house, in the Lion's Den, I believe is what that room was called, if I remember correctly, in that house that you had there. And I remember myself, my fiance put that on and took pictures and show people. And I know the jealousy meter went up in a lot of people's books, I feel like. But, we're going to get into a lot in this segment. There is a lot to get to. You had some big news just recently come out. We have to talk about your mixed double nationals, obviously, maybe a little chit-chat about the recent Brier results and who was involved in that, of course. But I do like telling the story to make things light off the hop that I have put on that medal, and it is a very good quality. Okay, a lot of people that maybe not know, Brad, the medal that you had, it's not like it's and I don't mean to chirp anything that when you were younger in hockey getting these participation medals, but they're not the same as getting Olympic gold medals. Go through maybe some of our listeners that don't know the full background of that and just how it feels like to win a gold medal and just what that gold medal feels like. Maybe you can share that with our listeners quickly, because obviously you got that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did try on the gold medal at the old house we had there. I think you were going to try that on regardless of whether I let you or not. You were going beeline straight for that thing. And but no, you're right. We've had some good memories in the past and good buddies here in the Sioux. And can't wait to maybe hit the golf course with you again this summer, even though you're terrible, by the way. But,
that's a good reminder. We got to talk about that too.
We'll talk about that. Cool. So winning the gold a number of years ago now, dates back to 2014, I guess about 9 years ago as of this past February. Lots of really great memories pop up on social media for all of us around that time, sometime in February, end of February. The best way that we can describe it, I think all of us as a team at the time, Ryan, EJ, Fry, myself, even Caleb, our coaches, Tom, and everyone, was total relief. There's a lot of pressure. Especially, curling's evolved and changed a lot in the last 8 or 9 years as well. Since then, different rule changes in the game and whatnot. And then a lot of other countries are getting really, really good. Canada is no longer the favorite necessarily going into these international events because all the other teams are getting so much better. But back then, we were certainly one of the favorites, certainly a favorite to medal and probably the favorite to win gold. And that was our first experience, anything like that. To that magnitude. So it was, we weren't ourselves in the beginning. It was pretty nerve-wracking. We started off the Olympics 1 and 2, if people will remember. Like I said, we weren't ourselves. We kind of felt like a deer in the headlights out there. We had some really good meetings with our coaches. We had Mike Babcock give us a nice little pep talk. And the rest was history. I think we won the next 7 games. We went on to win Olympic gold, and it was just total relief. It was like, thank God this thing is over, and we've won, and now we can breathe a little easier and celebrate.
Definitely. And I know you and myself talked about it on recordings of the Game Sports Show podcast in 2017, I think 2018. There's previous recordings you can check in our archives that we dove into that a little bit more. But yeah, I think a good thing that you mentioned is obviously the game has evolved, right? And I don't mean this to say to either just because I'm a good friend of yours, but I think your team obviously had a big part of that. When you went to that Olympic gold, I know the attention was on Team Jacobs, right? It was the celebratory after all the big shots, and it was getting all that enthusiasm. You brought a great energy to the sport that was a little bit of a different feel than maybe what people were used of. And maybe that's just me on the outside looking in, because to be honest, I wasn't big into curling until you and the boys got as far as you did and won, and all the things you've done in the last few years, until you guys obviously moved on to different chapters in your life. So I think it's fair to say you won't probably agree to it, but you are a big part, yourself and your team were a big part of the change in the world of curling. And you brought an energy to the game that I know some people had feedback about. Let's just be real. Some people didn't agree with the energy, but I say screw that, because I love the energy. That shows how much you care. And if people know by watching you, Brad, on your shots, there is not a more serious face in anything that I have ever seen in my life. Okay, like when you're in the zone, you are in the zone. That you boys cared, and that's why your energy was what it was. And the Sioux were like that. We're very loud people.
Yeah, you bet. And just to kind of elaborate more on that, there's been a lot of teams over the years in men's and women's curling that have helped bring the game, move the game forward and raise the level of play and raise the bar. And I think that our team at that time was one of those teams, and teams have raised the bar even more since. But yeah, we did bring kind of a unique energy and swagger, I would say at the time. We really had a killer instinct. We wanted to win. Our standards were very high that we put on ourselves, and we were probably a polarizing team back then. I know EJ mentioned that the other day at the curling club after I was talking to those guys when they returned home from the Briar. And we were a different team back then for sure. And it worked out well for us though. And certainly we had people that loved us and hated us, and also people somewhere in between. But if you're going to play a sport at any high level, know that you're probably going to have people that love you and dislike you as well. And that's kind of when you know you've made it, and that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. And like Brad said, I beeline to that gold medal, and it's very good quality, okay? Now, you did mention, before we get into the key topics we're going to get into about curling, you mentioned golf for a second. And I want to share that now instead of the end, because if I keep going, I'll probably forget, because I get down rabbit holes when I talk sometimes, as you know better than anybody. We last year, myself and Brad and Dustin Grondin, and I forget who was with us now. Was it Mitch Dionysi? I forget who it is now.
I think it was.
It was Mitch. Now, I know I'm throwing names out there for people that may not know. But anyways, there's a team of 4, and it's basically what I like to call it best ball golf. And obviously my ball is not the ball that gets thus far down the course, of course. But Brad mentioned my awful golf game. And we were involved in Michael Doan's charity golf tournament last year. We've been in it every year, myself and Dustin as well. And it's definitely for a great cause. And obviously it's a former teammate of mine with Michael as a teammate for a number of years, and played hockey with him growing up. And he tragically passed over a handful of years ago. And Brad, you and I played golf together, okay? And I asked you off air before, and now we're going to bring it up on air. If I had to choose a sport that I should maybe play to try to learn, golf or curling, I know you had an answer to that because I was really bad at one sport, so I'll let you take that away.
Yeah, I think your best shot, Dave, is curling, without a doubt. Without a doubt. That golf game you've got going on, I don't know if you've got a chance, buddy. You're 15, 20 years away from any half-decent score. But you know what? If you put some time and effort in, we can all learn, right?
Yeah.
And you can get better. But the one thing I admire about your swing is how far your ass sticks out. I've seen nothing like it. You've got a great ass when you're over the ball. That posture you got going, I've never seen anything quite like it. So.
I don't know why I want to take. Maybe I'm just showing it off. I don't know. Showing the junk in the trunk, right? And I think I've been told it's like my baseball stance is what I do a lot of, right. Which I do play outside. As people can see, the trophy right behind me to my right. That's the baseball championship that we won last year. It's the closest that I got to a gold medal after junior hockey or a gold or championship. But obviously I would like to learn curling because I feel like there was obviously some hockey experience, some ice experience. Maybe there's some transferable skills to a degree. But if anyone sees my golf game, which you will this year, we'll have video uploads. And maybe the first one will be when I'm with Brad on the course. And we'll hear Brad be the patient guy that he is with me, being confident and giving me hope. And then there's the other guy, one of our casual co-hosts on football, Dustin, will be the one chirping me in the background. Yeah. That's how awful I am.
That's accurate.
Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes. Let's talk about the mixed double nationals. Now, by the time some people maybe hear this recording, you're already going to be going, already be playing. But you know what? I want to talk about it briefly before we get to the other 2 points. Floor is yours for the mixed double nationals. You're leaving today, actually, after we record. You're going to hit the road to go to that.
Yeah, you bet. So leaving today, it's Sunday. Going to hit the road, head to Sudbury. So Mixed Doubles Nationals is in Sudbury. A lot of great teams. It's going to be really tough. Going to be a really great test and challenge. So really looking forward to that. My regular partner, Carrie Anderson, as many people know, curling fans know, is over in Sweden right now, actually with our new teammate and my new coach, my new teammate coach, Reed Crothers. Reed Crothers coaches them. Rob Meekin's helping out. Carrie's over at the Worlds with her team, trying to win the Worlds for Canada. So I had to get a replacement, and my replacement for this week is Jennifer Armstrong. She's a great gal, great curler, lots of experience, ton of experience, and really impressed me a lot this year on the mixed doubles circuit. And she was available, so I scooped her up, and we're really excited. We're gonna head to Sudbury and give it all we got and see how it goes.
See, I know you'll correct me because I know there's a lot going on in both of our lives, but this is not your first since retiring Team Jacobs. This is not the first play you've had since then, correct? This is like you've done other things up until now. So it's not like you're just jumping off retired the team, let's just say, quote unquote, and jumping right into it. You've been playing a little bit. You've been obviously the curling club in Sault Ste. Marie, which you're a big part of, and I want to give love to the curling club. Everyone should check that out. They got also, I hear, got great food. Side note, side note to that, but. This is something that you're prepared for, and, you bringing in somebody that's going to be really helpful. You had someone go on for good reasons to represent Canada. It's going to be stiff competition, as you mentioned, but back to what I was saying, you've been preparing for this. It's not like you've stopped playing and you're just jumping into it cold.
Yeah, you're right. So we've prepared for this a little bit. Carrie and I played 2 events together on the mixed doubles circuit. Really great new super series, it's called, put on by Wayne Tuck and Jay Allen. And they've got some other help. We had a really great circuit between basically September and December, played 4 times, and that was my first go at mixed doubles. So we made the playoffs in a few events, a semifinal, 2 semifinals, I think, a final. So we had some fun, and it was a learning curve for me. I've never played mixed doubles before, Dave, so it was a little bit of a challenge. As a lot of people know, I haven't swept my whole career. I've been a skip my whole career. I only sweep the back like 6 feet. So sweeping was a little tough for me to get used to, as well as the pace of play. It's a really different game, and it's challenging. So it was unique for me, and I really did enjoy it. It's a tough game, and I think hopefully, I'm playing third now for Team Crothers. Hopefully, getting used to sweeping with mixed doubles is something that I can transfer into men's and then build on. So I will say this too. Sweeping in the mixed doubles game has given me a lot more appreciation for, guys like Ryan and EJ, obviously anyone who's swept my rocks in the past and anyone who sweeps in general. It really did give me a whole new perspective and appreciation for the hard work that they do and how they make shots for their teammates, those strong sweepers out there.
See, I've never really curled, and I said to Brad, to everyone, that I do want to learn it. And sweeping, that's a workout. Okay, everyone, that's not easy to do, and it is a different from being a skip, going over to a third, and doing all that. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was going to be my little spinoff question: was what is the difference that you felt? And obviously, you're feeling that it's a different adjustment than being a skip, right? It's a different role. It's like playing. Maybe it's a bad example, but forward and defense in hockey. There's 2 different ways. Each sport is a different position, right? Quarterback, safety, and football, right? Maybe those aren't good comparisons, but when you have to learn something different in the sport after you've been doing it so long, it takes an adjustment. You went through that adjustment, and it takes a lot of mental strength for that too, and a lot of physical strength and determination. So respect for that. Now let's talk about Team Crothers. Okay, we've talked about it a couple times on here. You're back. Brad Jacobs is back, okay, and it's been trending. Okay, you can search. I remember looking on Google when the story broke on Thursday, which I believe now was March the 16th. I think that was the right day, Thursday. But anyways, that doesn't matter the date. When that broke out, it was trendy. When I searched your name on Google to get some of the stories, I know we were talking, you had the trendy name underneath there, okay? The Brad Jacobs name was trending with it. The stories broke that you were back in the world of curling, and you're joining Team Crothers, and you're there as the thirds, and it's you're out of retirement, they say, but it's not, because you're in the mixed doubles. You're just back in that competitive play with the males. So I want to give you the floor. It's known there's different articles out there, but you know what? There's not a podcast, okay? There's not a podcast with Brad Jacobs, all right? This is where you're going to get the full, not just someone typing what he said. You're going to actually hear Brad's voice, okay? No offense to any of the article. I'm not chirping anybody, but the podcast, you're going to hear the real words. Brad, take it away. You're back, and I'm excited to watch you play. You're joining a good squad. Let's give the listeners details.
Yes, I am officially back. We can say it now. And for the record, also, I was never retired. I was always taking a break from the game.
Thank you.
Wanted to focus on some other things. We have a lot going on in our lives right now. And I've had a really great year not competing in men's. I think it was something that I needed. And I certainly cherished it this past season, not playing men's and being with my family a little bit more. We had a lot of really great trips. Went to Mexico a couple times and did fit some mixed doubles in there and stuff. So, but I'm back, and I'm repping one of the sponsors here, Princess Auto.
Yeah.
That's Reed Crothers, Team Crothers title sponsor. I figured I'd throw this on for the podcast.
Smart move.
Give them a little support and shout out because they've been supporting Reed and the guys for many years. So, I think a lot of people, are wondering how this all came about. I think some people are even saying, why did you guys announce it when you did? And we can address some of those things. But like one of the reasons why we got this out right now, and we were actually planning on waiting. So I'll give everyone some context as to how all this went down. We were going to wait a little bit longer, but what ended up happening was after the Brier was over, and everyone, hopefully a bunch of the listeners and viewers today that see this watch the Brier. So you had Dunstone in the final against Gushu, and Botcher got third place, and then Team McEwen got fourth place. And there's a whole lot of other teams out there, even teams that didn't make the Brier. And a lot of people were reaching out to myself as well as Reed, not only leading into the Brier and after provincial playdowns ended, but also after the Brier was over. A lot of teams, it appeared that a lot of teams were looking to make some sort of a change. I was kind of overwhelmed by all of the players that were reaching out looking for kind of that missing piece and thinking that I could help out and fill that void. So I was dealing with a lot of different messages. I know that Reed was as well. So we decided to get this news out a lot sooner, just out of respect for all the teams that want to go and form their teams, know that I was off the table. We did want to wait longer too, because we wanted, the Brier champion and all that, and that was Gushu and EJ and those guys. We wanted to respect them and make sure that they had, the week to celebrate and for that to be big news. And so we waited as long as we felt like we could before making this announcement. Yeah. But I'll say that when I played with Reed's team at the Grand Slam in Camrose in January, although we didn't make the playoffs, we only played 5 games. I was sold then on playing with those guys. I really was. And the main reason why is because we got along so well. And I really just felt super comfortable with them both on and off the ice. It felt almost too easy to be around them, and that's a good thing. So I really felt like the dynamic was right for me, and I knew, kind of in my heart that that's where I needed to be. So I let those guys know very early on I was actually towards the end of that event that I was quite interested in playing with them moving forward if they would have me. And lo and behold, they said, yeah, you can come and play with us. They were excited, and I'm excited. So that's kind of as far as it's gotten. We've communicated a little bit between then and now, but it's been really busy. Reed is over with the girls in Sweden, like I said. Derek and those guys, they had to play in their provincial playdowns. Connor's wife, Selena, is very pregnant right now. They're about to have their first child in the coming days or weeks here.
Minutes.
So, yeah, a lot going on. And other than announcing this news, we really haven't had the opportunity to sit down and kind of set some goals or standards or really talk about a whole lot. So we're going to get to that pretty soon, I would say.
And I'm glad that you brought up that detail about, the respect to other teams, because obviously you were off the table and you've had interest to joining, and you went to the team that's the right fit for you, which is important, right? It's I had somebody ask me 2 questions, and I'll save one of them near the end because I know we only have limited time, but it's a question that I really didn't know how to answer, but there was one that I felt like I just laughed at. The one question is, what if Brad joined Team Gushu?
Oh,
and I had no answer to that. I said, I just laughed. I said, wouldn't that be funny, eh? And he just changed the topic. But this was a fit. But jokes aside, this was a fit. And overall, that's what's big. You mentioned you play with them in January, and the chemistry's there. And you could be that piece that can put them over the top. Right, and it's a big announcement, you joining them, and that's all teams need at times, is to really get the chemistry rolling. And someone like yourself coming in with that Olympic gold medal experience, the mindset that you have, and just that team, that's really going to help create a recipe for success. We'll call it a success potion, because that's what can really put a team over the top. And the teams that are there, you got the Gushus, you got the Botchers, you got teams that are formed. Things have changed this year in curling. The game is growing, and it's going to be different seeing you out there with a different squad. We'll call it, but it's. I like how you addressed that it was the fit for you, because that is so important in the world of curling. From what I realize, you're more of that expert, of course. My subject matter expert may not be in the world of curling, but understanding the game for the right fit and for you to enjoy it. That's very important.
Yeah, no, it is. And let's just talk about that a little bit. Curling, I think, is the ultimate team sport. You don't have anybody sitting on the bench. You don't have anybody, on the sidelines or in the lineup, out of the lineup. Everyone is responsible for 25% of what's happening 100% of the time. And the dynamic in the fit is extremely important. You see, and you talked about it a little bit, you see teams sometimes in sports that might not necessarily be the most talented team, but because of their chemistry, maybe their leadership or their coaching, or they're unified, they can play above their level and go out and win championships. Whereas sometimes teams that don't have that, maybe they've got better star players, don't necessarily go and win championships. Now those teams still do, don't get me wrong. But, I think that dynamic is just, it's so important, especially in curling. And we spend a lot of time on the road. Yeah. And, we kind of joke, and everyone probably spends more time with their curling team than they might with their spouse over the course of a curling season. Yeah. And getting along with one another, both on and especially off the ice, and not having to force things or be fake in any kind of way, and just be yourself, can really bring out a lot of confidence in an athlete. Everybody wants to win. That goes without saying. We're no different than any other team out there. Yeah. And we're going to do the things, and like I said, we haven't had this conversation yet, and I'm sure we will, but we'll set some plans in motion and work towards, some standards and some goals that we want to set. Yeah. And I know when I got the opportunity to even just practice and throw rocks at the Grand Slam, we did a lot of that when we were playing at that Grand Slam in Camrose. I loved Reed's leadership out on the ice in terms of running practices. I loved how Connor and Derek really just kind of went with the flow and really let Reed lead, and also just his demeanor and how he speaks to the team. He really is a true leader. I was looking for that, and I loved how he carried himself and handled himself, in practice out on the ice. And I'm really just looking to hopefully come on board here and be that support role for both the front end and especially Reed. And I know we're all going to agree on that. We got to make that guy feel 10 feet tall and give him all the confidence in the world, because I think he can make any shot. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. And I'm looking forward to playing that hybrid role, and more so stepping back from the skipping leadership role. I know a lot of people are probably surprised, well, why aren't you skipping? Why aren't you throwing last rock on that team or skipping that team? Well, quite frankly, I don't want to, and I've got all the faith in the world that Reed is our guy. I really do. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited, and I'm excited to take on a new challenge and just be the best teammate I can be out there.
100%. You guys, this was a big add, 150% for them. It goes without saying. And your leadership, and if it reads the leadership that you state that he is, that can help gel a team. And the team that I always look at when it comes to leadership, they had talent, is the Detroit Red Wings in the late 90s, early 2000s. Okay, obviously they had superstardom. Okay, that's not take that away. They're one of the best hockey teams ever. But they had the Eisman, they had the Shanahan, they had the guys that really just knew when some of the younger guys came in, settled them down, or in general just had a locker room that guys just wanted to win. And I don't like to use that superstar example, because you did refer that some guys, or you did refer to that some, you may not be have the most superstar team, or some teams that do. Either team can win a championship as long as I think that the team chemistry is number one. And if that's followed, you guys will be successful, and you guys have the core that will do that. Now, I know we only have a couple minutes. I know you got to hit the road, so we'll just bring up the next two things very briefly. It is a little bit more, I'll say, dated content, but not really, because we're going to make it not dated content. The Brier. Obviously, Gushu won the Brier. Team Jacobs alum were in there. You had going against each other in the finals. I want you to take it away and to say how that was for you to watch. You know the background. I'm sure you've talked to both EJ and Ryan. I want you to maybe give some deets for our listeners about how the post-Brier has been since Gushu was crowned the winner.
Right. Okay. So I didn't watch a whole lot of the Brier during the round robin. We really tuned in a lot the final weekend during the playoffs, leading up to the playoffs. It was an incredible Brier. And, I mean, I just want to bring up, first of all, how lucky have I been over the course of the last, 10 years with the players that I've been able to play with, that have, you got Ryan and EJ both in the final, brothers, my first cousin, and we're all great buddies, just so everybody knows. Like, I was so proud of those guys. It was a very emotional final game. And you had Mark Kennedy, who we played with for 3 seasons. It's kind of like 2 almost because of COVID, but amazing athlete and player and person, as well as Ryan Fry. Same story. We had a ton of success with Ryan Fry. All of those players, my former players over the past 10 years, all made the playoffs. So I just want to point that out, and full credit to all of them for continuing to work hard and put themselves in positions to win. It was really exciting for me to see all that. I had a different perspective on the Brier this year. We've played in it for years and years and years, many years in a row. I've played in it with my teams, and being on the outside looking in and not being out there competing, I was extremely nervous. I do understand now when people come up to us after and talk about how nervous we had them or we were making them, because I felt that. I really was able to feel from the other end, watching on the screen, how much these athletes wanted to win, what it meant to them. You saw a lot of that. There was a lot of tears on Saturday and Sunday, and you saw all the fans and how many people showed up and were cheering. That atmosphere and environment in London, they looked like they did a bang-up job, was incredible. So a Brier for the ages. It was really something. The level of play, spectacular. And I say now, I have to get back involved in the game now, before it passes me by, and I'm not good enough to even get out there and compete with these guys. With how quickly it is moving forward, and the level of precision is just it's spectacular. So curling's in a great spot, both on the men's and women's side, and obviously Ryan and EJ make it to the final. People had a lot of questions for me. I said the people I don't want to be, and I'm nervous for both of them because I love them, but Eric, their dad, Sue, their mom, and our Nana, who's 99 at home watching this on TV. I felt so bad for all of them. So don't worry about me so much, because that was something that we're never all going to forget, and especially Ryan and EJ. I mean, you got to talk to them. You got to get them on your podcast and maybe talk to them, Dave, and hear firsthand from them how they felt. But I'm sure that was something that they'll never forget, and experience, and emotions that they probably never felt before in their lives. Yeah. And what a great opportunity for growth as people. Unfortunately, one has to win and one has to lose. Yeah. That's what sucks, right?
There's no ties in the finals. No ties.
Yeah, that's what sucks. So, yeah, obviously Gushu and those guys got it done. They got a big 3. I think it was in the 8th end, and you could kind of see that they were tasting blood at that point. And you saw, I actually was watching EJ specifically, how he was sweeping, and that extra little kick in of adrenaline and effort on a few sweeps in the last couple ends. You could tell he wanted it really bad. And, it was an unbelievable thing. And I saw Ryan and EJ at the curling club the last few days. They started to kind of show up again. And they admit they're really tired, and they look a little bit tired, even, multiple days after. I'm sure, there was some partying and whatnot going on after the game. You kind of, it's a lot of emotions coming out of you. People don't realize how hard that week is. And when you come down off of that, it's very hard. It's very hard on your body. And so, yeah, it was something else. It was something else. And I know it turned out the way that it did. I'm very, very proud of EJ. I'm sure he's super excited to now be a 2-time Brier champ. And I'm really gutted for Ryan, who, wanted that really badly, and it just didn't work out that day, because they play that game again, and that could go the other way. That's how good both of those teams are.
Very good. Very good. See, thanks for that detail, Brad. I couldn't give that detail, obviously, the inside scoop. And you're right, I should have both EJ and Ryan on here. It's almost like a Kelsey brother feeling from the Super Bowl. Yeah, it's not the Super Bowl, but how they go against each other, right? You got the mother wearing the half jersey. Right? That's good. That's just great. That's just see and they really did care. And you're right. I really followed a lot more of the semis and the finals and all that. That's where I feel like the extra excitement comes into play. And to see them two go against each other, the Sue crew was all excited as well, because everyone knows who are outside the Sault Ste. Marie's and the heart of the Great Lakes, and that's where EJ and Ryan are from, and of course Brad. So I know we went a little extra here, Brad. So last thing I'll say quick is that last question that I said that I would bring up. I had someone ask me, and I don't know this answer, and I'll be honest, I don't know this answer. So I had somebody ask me, say, Dave, do you talk to Brad? I said, yeah. I said, you guys ever talk about curling? I said, well, yeah, it isn't strictly curly. We're friends. We talk about normal things. How bad I am at golf. Maybe Kyle Dubas's moves with the Toronto Maple Leafs. We talk about multiple things. Okay, but what I was asked is the growth of the Brier itself. It used to be, from what this person said, and I tried to look and find data and I couldn't, so that's why I don't know if it's accurate or not. So that's why I'm going to say it flat out. The Brier now has Team North Ontario team, right? You have all these different teams. It's you got multiple representation, wild card, you got all that going on. Can you explain why it's expanded the way that it has, or has it always been that expanded and people just don't know what they're asking me? Because I do remember the Brier seeming like it was a bit more of a one region was representing. There wasn't wild card, and it did change. Can you elaborate that a little bit more and answer that question? I did tell the person I would ask this question to you.
Okay, that's a tough one to answer, and this could take a really long time.
Okay.
All right. Now, I guess you look at the Brier. It's for many years it's been all about tradition, and you've got 4 players that all live in like the same province. And they go and they try to win out of their club and their region and their provincial, and they make it to the Brier. And it was this long road to try to make it to the World Championships. And like I said, all about tradition, where they would host the Brier in a city, in an arena. Yeah. People would travel from all over Canada, wear their provincial colors, and support their province. Northern Ontario being not a province, it's more of a region. But we're lucky because we do have Northern Ontario, with Ontario being such a large geographic area. You know, back when they started this thing up, I think it was 1927, if I remember correctly. How do you travel from, say, Sarnia up to Kenora to play in that provincial championship? It was really tough, right?
Yeah.
So it's been all about tradition, 4 players from the same area. Now, it's evolved, it's changing. Curling Canada, it has been changing it kind of multiple times over the last decade or so, with the addition of the returning champion as Team Canada. You've got now these wild card spots. You've got so many great players and great teams, multiple teams from a province, say like Alberta or Manitoba. You know, you look at Alberta, you've got, for years, you had Kevin Cooey and Kevin Martin in there. Now you've got Brendan Botcher and Kevin Cooey in there. Manitoba, same thing with Jeff Stoughton and Kerry Burtnick and lots of different teams. And now you've got Crothers Dunstone and some other teams in there. So they're throwing these wild cards in to continue to, I guess, make it strong and give these teams an opportunity to play. They've also loosened up the rules in terms of everyone having to be from the same province.
Okay.
So now you have what's called a free agent. And you saw maybe some of the news about some teams out there who, I don't know if the rules are going to change or whatnot, but it's all about trying to find the best representative to send to the World Championships to compete on the world stage.
Or your country.
I really don't know what the future holds for the Brier. I don't mind the format that they have going on now. There's all kinds of debates on that, and I don't want to get into the middle of that and say what's right or what's wrong. I really don't know. I don't have the answer. I don't care to think about it all that much. Now, I don't even know if that's the right thing to say, but I don't. I think there's people out there. As an athlete, I like to worry about being an athlete. There's enough on our plates when it comes to that side of things. I don't worry about the political side or the running the championship side a whole lot, although maybe I should look at that more. So that's kind of where it's at. I know that we continue year after year to find that Canadian champion to represent us well at the Worlds, and the format that they have in place right now always finds that team. Right now, Gushu's team is the best one to take on the responsibility of wearing the maple leaf and go and try to win the World Championships for Canada, which now has become very, very difficult with Scotland being so good, Sweden being so good, Switzerland, Italy, a lot of other countries, they just continue to get better and better and better.
Yeah.
So I guess they're trying to find the best way to sort of make everyone happy and mix in and keep tradition, but also find, the strongest teams and give people an opportunity to play together that aren't necessarily all in the same province or city.
Yeah.
And form the best team. So we do now have a new high performance director for Curling Canada. His name's David Murdoch. He was just hired from Scotland. Actually, I just recently saw his wife's Canadian, and I did know that. So he's gotten that job as a new high performance director. And certainly as an athlete, I would expect that Dave's going to come in here with all of his experience as a player, as well as everything that he did to help the program in Scotland get to the strength that it's at today, and it's very, very strong. He's going to bring in some fresh new ideas and a great new perspective, and I think we'll continue to see things change and evolve moving forward.
You see, and that's the short, brief answer of it. And I know it's a lot, and it's a good point that you brought up there that I take away from that. Canada has so much talent, and it gives us the opportunity to send the best talent for everyone to compete, right? For all these teams to compete. Because if you just have one from each one, you may as well just call it the Canadian Championship, or you may as well give it a different name. To have a Brier, and I think having it as a wide stream is a good direction. But there's always growth, and it was still an exciting Brier. I know we spent a lot of time talking mixed double nationals. Your return on Team Crothers, very pumped about that. We talked about the Brier and the brothers going against each other, of course. All of your members all made it to the playoffs. That's a key thing that you brought up. That shows how good Team Jacobs was, okay? That's how good it was. Now we're going to get towards the end here, Brad, and always the sad part of it. I was going to bring up who your favorite music artist is at the beginning. I don't know why I had that noted, because I remember jamming to him in your previous house. But I want people to guess if people feel like commenting. A lot of interactions are likes and loves and some comment about, that. But if somebody hears this part of the show, I want someone to guess who Brad's favorite artist is, because I think I know who it is, and I'll tell you who I think it is off air, Brad.
I've got a few, Dave. I've got a few. I think it may have changed as well since then.
I don't know. I feel like you really loved this guy. He was echoing through your house the entire night when we were there. But people can comment below, and if you comment correctly, maybe there'll be a nice gift certificate coming somebody's way, okay? Maybe that's just a little guess if people want to get some free prizes from the Game Sports Show. Now, Brad, it's been fun. This has been the Game Sports Show podcast. This is the segment 2 of this uploads, and we went a little extra. That gives producer Mike Tassone and / me a little extra work on the edit end. But hey, it's always a great time, my friend. And we'll have to have you on again in the near future, maybe after the Doubles Nationals, if you want a quick little segment again, or as Team Crothers, gets coming and things get going with that as well. Congratulations. Happy to see you back. And again, I appreciate the time you took with us today.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Dave. All the best, buddy.
All the best. All right, we're going to take a quick breather here. Allow me to have a sip out of my Mandalorian Grogu Star Wars cup that people are probably sipping out of, and then we're going to get to segment 3, which will include my final thoughts. Don't go anywhere. And we're back here with the Game Sports Show podcast, back to being yours truly here, invading your screen or invading your speakers or your earphones, whatever way you're listening to the Game Sports Show. I want to say thank you to Brad for coming on the show. And again, special shout out to Mike Tassone, the producer here on the Game Sports Show podcast, doing the beauty of video editing to ensure all these smooth and great transitions and to make me sound better, maybe even look better. I definitely try. We're inside the TGM studios continuing the Game Sports Show podcast, episode 4. And this one, I do promise you, is going to be brief when I say it's going to be brief. And it is becoming known, the third segment, as the final thoughts. So the final thoughts could be 1, 3, or 5 points. And today we have 2 points. The first point I'm going to bring up is the Masters. Yes, David McCaig talking about golf. I am by far probably one of the worst golfers. I can hit a ball all the time, I feel like, if I ever hit it straight, but my swing is awful. I don't know what I'm doing out there. If I played a 9-hole game, I feel like I would just be well over 100 anyways, and I'm out there for fun and for the charity causes that I participate in. But, of course, being a sports podcast host and a podcast business entrepreneur, you follow a lot of podcasts. And, of course, being a sports passionate fan as I am, I follow all sports. And I love the Masters. I love keeping in touch with all sports. But the Masters has a different touch to it. I remember being younger watching Mike Weir win, and I actually missed the finals when he won that year. My dad had a men's league hockey game, and it was actually on the bench where people were on the phone, because you really couldn't look up on phones for Facebook or Instagram at that point. But there were announcements, and I remember the female that was in the score booth asked her if she heard the results, because we were talking before the game. And I remember being younger. I was in my early teens, and she was saying how, or even younger than that actually, but she was saying how Mike Weir has won it. And the bench was very excited being Canadian, and it's great, right? That's what was my introduction to golf. And of course, Tiger Woods, seeing him, he invaded all platforms that were available, TV, everything was Tiger Woods. And the Masters, I love watching the Masters. You know, it's a very, very, very exciting tournament for the world of golf. And I know people can say, oh, golf's difficult to watch. No, the Masters has a different feel, especially when it comes down to the final round. And people ask me about golf a lot, and I haven't talked about it a lot on the show. That was more of other co-hosts' responsibility, but I'm going to make sure that I give it a quick love today. If you look at the money line as per CBS, John Rahm is up there. You got Scotty Scheffler. You have Rory McIlroy, Cameron Smith, Jordan Spieth. I'm a fan of Jordan Spieth and Rory McIlroy, of course. But my favorite golfer is Bubba Watson, who is at 100 to 1, sorry, not 1,000 to 1 odds, 100 to 1 odds to win. And that's actually, like I said, my favorite golfer. So I am hoping for Bubba Watson to come up with a Cinderella story win to get another green jacket. But Tiger Woods right now, too, you have Tiger Woods at 55 to 1 odds. But so those are the two that I'll be cheering for. But in terms of who I think is going to win, obviously John Rahm is 15 to 2 as per CBS Golf for the odds through Sportsline. So I'm not going actually with John Rahm. I'm not going with Scotty Scheffler. I'm not going with Rory McIlroy. Who I'm going with in this tournament is actually, I think, Justin Thomas. I think Justin Thomas gets it this year. I just got a feeling. I really don't have any rationale with it. And even just looking at Moore Norris, he's ninth in the PGA Tour and world ranking. And I'm also, like I said, a fan of Jordan Spieth, but there's something that I can see with Justin Thomas just going into that tournament. He's obviously a very excellent golfer, keeps a lot of precision to his game. And I think he's ranked being 16 to 1 odds and being behind Spieth, Smith, McIlroy, Scheffler, and Rahm is going to give him that little bit of motivation. I think he's going to pull away in the tournament. And don't bet with me, though. I'm telling you right now. But the main reason why I want to bring up golf is to state who I think is going to win and talk a little bit of money line or sports line, I should say, as per CBS. Looking them up, giving them some free advertisement here. But I wanted to make sure I give you some details about it, and also guys that I'm cheering for who are different than the ones who I think is going to win. But we are going to have a Masters discussion here on the Game Sports Show podcast. I do plan to have a segment dedicated to a Masters preview, or at the very least a Masters reaction when the tournament is done, or both. So we will be talking about that on the Game Sports Show podcast. So let me know who you think is going to win the Masters. It begins, beginning of April. It's right around the corner. It's a few weeks away until the Masters are underway. So let me know below who you think is going to win and what you think of those odds that are posted that I talked about. You can look at different money line options, Bet99 or Sportsbet, or there's a lot of gambling opportunities to look at different odds, but who is your favorite? And who do you cheer for? Like I said, I'm a Bubba Watson and Tiger Woods guy. And, of course, John Daly was obviously a beauty to always look up to. But those are two that I cheer for. But who I think is going to win is Justin Thomas. The last point I want to get into, we only have a couple more minutes here, Aaron Rodgers. In NFL. So we have a show on the Game Sports Show called In the Pocket. The In the Pocket podcast has been going around for 6 years. We've been doing it a long time. It's well over 100 episodes. You know, we do an episode every week. We talk about the upcoming week and predict games in our pickup. It's been one of our more well-known shows. Of course, football and hockey are the two shows that started off the Game Sports Show in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Canada. The Game Sports Show has always originated firstly through a combination of Sault Michigan and Sault, Ontario, but it started from a local regional national sports podcast that talked everything sports on live radio. So obviously we've grown and evolved and changed the show format a little bit, obviously. And the world of football we do talk about a lot here on the Game Sports Show podcast and the members of the Game Sports Show family in the network umbrella. But Aaron Rodgers wanting to go to the New York Jets. So I'm not going to talk about right now when I'm recording. Aaron Rodgers is still on Green Bay. Technically. Obviously, he said when he comes back, he wants to play for the Jets, and that's been known. And by the time this is uploaded, or even while I'm talking, he may be already dealt, or things have already got in motion. In the pocket, we haven't had our season finale, but we do plan to actually have our season finale right after the draft. Is when we want to do our season finale of In the Pocket. We did our Super Bowl preview show. We're not going to do a Super Bowl reaction show. We know there's other outlets that can do with that. We felt it would be necessary to do our finale after the draft. And by then, I'm sure we'll be talking about Aaron Rodgers as well. I'll make sure I don't get down the rabbit hole of veering off the topic. But the In the Pocket podcast, I'm sure this will be brought up a bit more detailed. So I want to keep it as a final thoughts portion regarding Aaron Rodgers and loyalty to a team. That's where I'm going with this topic. And I can refer to hockey, refer to baseball. Steve Yzerman with the Red Wings, Derek Jeter with the Yankees, Aaron Rodgers that has been with Green Bay forever. But my example would be Ben Roethlisberger. I'm a Steelers fan in the world of football, and I saw Ben get drafted, and I saw his last game retire. Not in person, but I've seen him win a couple of Super Bowls. Right? He was inaugural. He was an imperative part of that team. Of course, he's the quarterback. Ben Roethlisberger was. But in basketball, Michael Jordan was with the Chicago Bulls forever, and he didn't retire a Bull. Obviously, he went over to the Wizards, and there's been players who have spent their career with one team, and you don't see it as much anymore in the world of sports, but there are players that do it. Back to hockey, Patrice Bergeron, right? He's been in Boston since he started. I get a lot of that Detroit vibes with the Boston Bruins. Obviously, they haven't won as many cups as Detroit did in the late thousands and the early thousands, but they have that leadership and that star-studded talent. But anyways, we're talking Aaron Rodgers here in football, but it's not really football that we're talking about here. I want to make sure I give love to In the Pocket, but I'm here to talk about Aaron Rodgers and loyalty to the game. Listen, if Aaron Rodgers wants to leave Green Bay, he can. I know there's maybe upset fans, maybe there isn't. Why not just retire a Packer? I get it. If I was Aaron Rodgers, obviously he still has some game left in him and he wants to still play. But Tom Brady left the Patriots, went to the Buccaneers, right? Now he's in the world of media, and there's no way for what he's getting paid in media, he's going to stop. But I love when a player is loyal to an organization. Aaron Rodgers has won Super Bowl with Green Bay Packers. He's been successful with the Packers. He's had a trail. I feel that loyalty is important to stay with one team for your entire career. Now, if you grew up cheering for another team, it'd be hard because you always still have a love for that team. Maybe, myself, I'm a Leaf fan, right? So if I did play in the NHL and I was drafted by a team, I would always keep an eye on Toronto. That's where I'd want to play, right? So I'm not saying that's the same with Aaron Rodgers right now going to the Jets, but there's an example here that Aaron Rodgers has the right to move on, and for those who are mad at him, I get it. And I am a fan of someone being loyal to a team, staying with the team, making sure they retire with that team. That's why I give credit to Steve Yzerman. But the world of football and the world of sports is different. And Aaron Rodgers has earned the right to move on where he wants to. He has given all of his heart, sweat, soul, dedication to the Green Bay Packers. And as much as I would like to see him retire a Packer, as much as Packer fans probably want to see it, Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to stop playing, and he feels like it's time to move on from Green Bay, so I support that. Aaron Rodgers deserving to move on makes sense. Him not being successful the last few years there in terms of winning, it makes sense because he still has life left in him. But people ask me, what's your opinion on loyalty for players in sports? I would love to see a player start with a team and end with that team. That's what I'll leave it at. When it comes to more dissection about the trade or rationale, if I had the time, I would dive into more, but the only thing I can say is there's no better feeling than being a player with a team your entire career, giving it a chance. And since you've won, retire. Since Aaron Rodgers has won with Green Bay, I don't see the point of retiring. It's not like he's never won a Super Bowl with them. It's not like, I'm again going back to a hockey example, Ray Bourque. When he won the Cup of Colorado, one of the best stories in hockey, he moved on so he can go on and win a championship. The organization did right. If the Green Bay Packers have never won a Super Bowl and Aaron Rodgers is a veteran and there's a team that's looking to make a run and stack up, do right by him. Give him that chance. But loyalty in the game is so important. Stay with the team that you were drafted by, grow with them, and win with them. That is a storyline. That is something that you do not see as much as we were used to seeing, and unfortunately, that's the way it's got to be. Do I agree with Aaron Rodgers moving on? I support it and agree with it because he still wants to play, but it's turning on a new chapter. But do I like loyalty in a game and staying with your team? 100%. And I wish that was the direction. But as I said, things are changing in all sports today. Loyalty is still a thing, and Aaron Rodgers is still a definition of loyalty to the Green Bay Packers because of how long he stayed there. So if anyone thinks he's not loyal, you're nuts, because he has been loyal to Green Bay, and he has the right to move on. And in closing, I want to see loyalty retire with the team, but I do support Aaron Rodgers. And I do agree if he wants to move on and continue playing, it's time to turn the page from Green Bay. But my recommendation is he should retire and move on, but he must still have life left in him, and he wants to make a run with a different team, and he has that right. But loyalty is great to see. This has been the Game Sports Show podcast, episode 4, presented by of course, empowered by the Game Entertainment Media, sponsored by the Sport Displays and Flawless Roofing, produced by Mike Tassone. Thanks again to Brad Jacobs for taking the time to join yours truly today on the Game Sports Show podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. A lot of discussion. We had about 38 minutes of you just hearing my voice talking about hockey, talking about golf, talking about football/not football, loyalty in sports, Aaron Rodgers, and touching a lot of points there, and I hope you enjoyed that. But the stories with Brad were fantastic today, and him coming out of not playing and now joining Team Carruthers, great to see, fantastic. And of course, Brad Jacobs being from Sault Ste. Marie and a close friend of yours truly, very excited to see him back on the ice in men's competitive, but definitely going to be enjoyable to watch him when he does go against the Hardinans and former teammates. Very enjoyable. So again, a second time here. Thank you to Brad Jacobs for taking the time. And to you listeners, you are what keeps the lights on here for the Game Sports Show and the Game Entertainment and Media. So make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. If you really like the content, share the video, comment below, get interactive. If you want to be a guest on the show, we do want to start bringing in fan guests. Reach out to yours truly, comment below, let us know. We want to hear your feedback and your take in the world of sports. What's coming up here on the Game Sports Show podcast? There's a lot of previous uploads you can check out. John Morasti, specialist in upload. Make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. All teaser uploads go up there as well. But coming up this week, as I said, Top Shelf did have a recent upload. We do not have one planned for the next week, but we may have one within the next 10 days. There will be a full-time upload coming up very soon. You can check out the Bitter Rivals podcast. That's within the Game Sports Show and TGM umbrella. There will be an In the Pocket finale, but that won't be till after the NFL draft. So there's always content being uploaded, so make sure you just keep an eye on those uploads for all things sports here on the Game Sports Show, the only local, regional, and national sports show in SSM, and it's your favorite sports show podcast in general. My name's David McCaig. I appreciate you joining us here on the Game Sports Show podcast once again. We will be back with more Game Sports Show content within the next week or so for this particular podcast, and we will have a special edition upload in the very near future. We have Alex Bolduc will be the next upload for the Game Sports Show podcast for that former NHLer. So lots of great things coming, and yes, lots more news coming from the Game Sports Show as well in the very near future. We're very excited to share that. Again, thanks for joining. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. And if you really liked it, make sure you share this content and comment below. On behalf of the Game Sports Show and the Game Entertainment Media family, I'm here to remind you, keep your stick on the ice, swing your bats, catch your touchdowns, drain your threes, and shoot your shots. Booyah.